What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Kicking It with Kachi, where we're sitting down with individuals that are taking their industry by storm. And today we have best-selling author, movie screenwriter, writer extraordinaire, Hari. Am I saying your name right? Hari Ziyad?
Ziyad, yes.
Ziyad, yes. Thank
Thank
you so much. Thank you, Hari, for coming by and really sitting down and kicking it with me. I know it's a Saturday. You want to hang out with the dogs, but thank you for taking the time and sharing your story with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So I want to, get into the elephant in the room, right? You're massive, multi platinum Grammy award winning best-selling author, right? Black Boy Out of Time, right? This memoir that is this coming of age story that mirrors your life as you're transitioning, learning your identity, both gender, sexuality, and personal, spiritual as well. How did you sort of decide to bear all to the world, your story and your experience?
Yeah, it was a interesting journey to what the final project was. So I'd done journalism for a couple of years before I started working on the book. I started this website called Race Baiter because I was like tired of pitching and like working with white editors, straight editors who didn't really understand the nuances of a lot of the stuff that I was interested in exploring. So I started this website and really started putting my work out there, and it kind of like gained a life of its own. And through that, I met a lot of people, including one of my first, still my agent, my book agent though. She became familiar with my work, and then she's like, "I think you're ready to write a book." I'm like 26, 27 at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But she's like, "No, I think you are." So I started just kind of a outgrowth of what I was already doing, writing about. This was in the middle of like the Black Lives Matter movement and like all of the stuff that my readers were already interested in. And then my mother was diagnosed with cancer, or her cancer became terminal in the middle of that writing process. And so the book kind of took on a different shape after that. I was like, really thinking about what that meant to be exploring all of these things in the midst of a
Right.
pandemic and the impending loss of my mother. And so it became a lot more personal after that. And that's really when it became the book that it ultimately ended up being an exploration of that whole process of losing my mother and like coming to terms with my place in the world and being a Black queer person. So yeah, that's kind of how that came to be.
Yeah, yeah. And one, I love the title because, as we all know, queerness, right, is so often placed out of time, right? When we talk about history, people love to erase the queerness of our history. And when it gets to, as you said, the nuances, the Black queerness of it all is erased even further, right? So to speak to this book and then to essentially go out and break into the industry self-published, while you're saying not trying to pitch us ideas and these people not resonating with your narrative and how you want to tell your story. Could you speak to the process for other young writers who are also speaking to their own narratives, trying to get their story out there, essentially get their selves published?
Yeah, so it's a very different landscape than it was then. I mean, this was still kind of early in like the social media world, like things were still they still welcomed a lot of people publishing their own stuff. Algorithms have changed. Social media sites nowadays don't really like to link out. So it's a little harder to do it the way that I did. But I think the overall idea, which is to just like focus on spaces where we don't always have to be explaining to others.
Right.
My goal with creating Race Baiter and my goal in writing in general is to like dig deeper into conversations with folks who are willing to go on those journeys with me. And I think that brings out a new level of my own writing versus always responding and trying to like force people to have conversations they don't want to have in the first
Right,
place.
right.
And so when you can find those communities where you can really dig into your writing and explore things on a deeper level, I think it allows you to really figure out what your voice is and what's unique about your voice, and that's really what you need in entering into the world as an artist in any form. And so, yeah, I would really encourage writers to find those communities, online, offline, where they can keep developing their voices, and figuring out what's unique about that. And not always try to respond to whatever else is going on in the world.
Right,
Not
right,
always try
right.
to explain themselves to other communities, even though there's always going to be those pressures. We live in a world that's dominated by folks who don't always look like us, who don't always live lives like us, and so they always, if we can't explain things to them, those are the ones who are funding a lot of the work. But I think to realize when you have to do that and when you don't is really
Right.
crucial, or it has been for my own journey.
And you've also worked past and before your book, right? Working on TV shows, right? Congratulations on another sixth season of The Neighborhood being aired on CBS. So, could you speak to your experience in working on a set, working for a major media company, and also seeing your writership be contributed to a lot of different other ideas to make this show?
Yeah, so I'm now no longer on The Neighborhood, but thank
Right,
you for that. I wrote on season 4. My usually when they bring in a new showrunner, there's a whole new team. So my showrunner left after season 4, and so that was the end of my road there. But that was an interesting journey. So I went to film school. I always wanted to do TV, film, writing, and I kind of lost steam with that because I was just coming up against so many roadblocks, which is kind
right,
of what
right,
we were talking about. I think it's a lot of the similar roadblocks that I was having when I was trying to write about the things that I wanted to write about from a journalistic standpoint. There's just like not always the space to have the kind of conversations to tell the kinds of stories that I'm passionate about telling. So that's when I got into journalism and like creating my own space. Was because after working as a page at NBC and a couple of other TV jobs, I was like, oh, there's really not, especially for someone at my level, a lot of
right.
opportunities to own your voice. And so I left. And then when I wrote the book, or around the time I started writing the book, I was asked to come consult on a show called David Makes Men
Yeah.
by Terrell McCraney, who wrote the play Moonlight, because he had seen a lot of my work online, like my journalism work, and he was
Oh
like, "I think
wow.
you have
Right.
a sensibility for TV," not even knowing that that's what I was interested in. So it's kind of cool how that came full circle and speaks to, um, things will always fall into place when and when they're supposed to. But that was a consulting job, but that led to more opportunities in TV, getting the opportunity to work on The Neighborhood. It's a whole different world than the book world, than online journalism world. There's so, I mean, a lot of the things that we're fighting about in the writer's strike right now speak to that. The way stories get greenlit, the opportunities that are given to folks like us, it's just it's hard to do that, even on a show like The Neighborhood, which has had a pretty substantially Black team, a big Black cast. It's still hard. The industry still looks and feels a certain way. But it was a really cool experience. I obviously got to meet a lot of my comedy idols, Tashina
I was
Arnold.
gonna say, I'm saying to Chinna Arnold, Cedric the Entertainer. What was what was the vibes like? Were they nice? Were they friendly?
Yeah, Tashina is really dope. I got to write an episode that was like really focused on her character, and so we got to share a lot over that, because most of the storyline follows Cedric's character, and it was really cool. Like I learned a lot. I'm not. If you read my book and then you see The Neighborhood, you're like, whoa, these are two different
Right,
things.
right, right.
I didn't consider myself a comedy writer, what to speak of a broadcast sitcom comedy writer. But I learned so much and feel so much more comfortable using my voice in that way and leaning into those parts of my skill set, which is really dope. Like everything I write now has an infusion of my humor, and I think that it brings out a lot of the what I love about my work now. So yeah, learning how to write comedy, learning how to work in a room, which can be really stressful. There's a lot of late nights.
Right,
Sometimes
right.
we get notes the night before a table read, like rewrite the whole script. um, Ideally, that's not you don't want to have to do that because the quality of work when it's rushed is not um going to be the best, but sometimes that just
It can
happens.
get stressful, right?
And so yeah, it was a lot of stress sometimes, but it was really fun. I met a lot of dope people that I still work with to this day, and like bouncing ideas off of. And I think it positioned me to know what I want and what I don't want going forward in this career, which I guess I'm back into now. Like this is
Right,
what
right, right. And I would say, as you are carving out, you speak about carving out a space for yourself in these multiple industries, right? And like I said, historically, there hasn't been a space for people that look like you and people that generally relate to you in this industry. So, how does it feel to go with your gut, go with your intuition to say that this is a story that has to be told and see it win so many accolades, right? Working with David Cooper, having best album art nominations, and then going on an amazing press run of bestseller authorship on multiple categories and must read for multiple youth. So, how does it feel to go with your intuition and then see maybe a little relief that the fright that your story wouldn't be received as well is actually being received massively well.
Yeah, it's such a great affirmation. Because I think at every level of like creating, it's people telling you what's not gonna work, what's not gonna.
Right, right, right,
And even if you are very secure in your voice, like those things can start to seep in. And so getting that affirmation is really important. And that's why I think the way that I ended up back in TV was so important. I think if I had just went from TV and went from college to LA, like moved out here, I
right,
wouldn't have had that security of my voice that I do now to be able to navigate it, that I gained from exactly what you're talking about, like seeing it first just resonate when I had Race Baiter, all of these stories that I would pitch to major publications and like,
right,
no, this isn't like no one's going to read this, and then seeing it get read and then doing that in book form. It just really goes to show that there's way more people who are eager for the types of stories that really dive deep into the issues that are facing us than anyone will have you believe. And those are the types of stories I want to tell. So I can do this and be fulfilled doing it, because I've questioned that so many times. Like, can I be fulfilled doing this?
right, right.
And seeing the response to the book definitely reminds me that I can.
And speaking about experiences as well that resonate with people, moving on to, as much as you say that you pivoted away from television and movies and this and that third, you are a screenwriter as well for feature film that's coming soon, I hope, released as well. I'm worried about you, right? That speaks to, I guess, this cathartic release of, as you're saying, accepting the passing of your mother and coming to terms with that experience as well. So, what was the decision to decide? Okay, from book, now I want to write a play, or write a script, write something where people are interacting with each other. You can see it live.
Yeah, so I mean, most of what I write has some resonance in like my life. This is probably the one that is most closely reflective. It's still fictionalized, but it's very much, the character in the script is also someone who's recently married, and their mother has new prognosis for her cancer, and he goes home and spends the last of her life with her, which is exactly what happened with me. But what made that me feel like I needed to do this, one, I first started writing it at the end of last year. I'm like, there's so much that I needed to process, and like,
Right, right,
there's so much of this story that like people can't even imagine. I'm like, let me just write something, not having any idea or like expectation for what it could become, but just like I need to process. I Writing is how I process a lot of the stuff that I'm dealing with. And so, but once it poured out of me and like I started getting feedback, folks were just, like, really, really fucking with it, or
right.
I don't know if I can say that.
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, folks were really, really fucking with what I put down on the page, and so I'm like, "Oh, we can actually maybe make something out of this," and I think it just speaks to, again, these are the kinds of conversations that people are eager for. They might be
Right,
difficult conversations, but especially, and I think it's really, this is me also, like, leaning into my experience as a comedy writer, like, being able to show that experience as it is as a whole. Like, there are so many funny
right. There's still
of
joy into
that.
it. Right,
There's so much joy that, these characters find amongst themselves, and like, people want to see that. So we did this table read at Outfest Fusion with like a bunch of like really talented award-winning cast and director, and got a lot of great feedback from there, with the goal of continuing to develop it, and yes, producing it at some point. And hopefully it'll be on the screens not too long in the future. But it's a long, long process for all of this, but we're in a really good position to see it through.
beautiful, beautiful. And speaking to ridership, I do want to give you a space as well to speak to the current situation of this writer strike that is happening in Hollywood, right? For people like me who are consumers of shows, right? All we're seeing is my show is being canceled, my show is being postponed, my show is being delayed, not
Right.
understanding the work that goes behind it or why the strike is even happening. So I definitely want to give you the opportunity to speak to it and speak to the message of what you guys are fighting for.
Yeah, so like you said, there are a lot of like shows that are being affected by this, which just goes to show how critical the writers
Right,
behind the shows are to what folks consume and what can folks enjoy. I think it's not always connected. Like, you just see a show on TV, you don't see how much the writers and everybody who've worked on a show have like really put into it, and the studios are really okay with that. They want you to not value our work so that they can devalue our work. And so,
right,
especially over the course of the last couple of years, with the streaming blowing up the way that it was, the
right,
media
right,
landscape has changed in so many ways, and it is just not kept up with how they pay writers, how they treat writers. One of the big things that have shifted, we get residuals. If you write on a show like The Neighborhood that's broadcast on TV,
right,
when it re-airs, writers and cast and folks get a portion of the money that comes in once the show re-airs. With
right, right.
streaming, there's no residuals because the show doesn't re-air.
Oh,
And
right.
so,
Oh, wow.
especially the places like Netflix do not give us any streaming numbers. Like, you don't know how many people are watching anything. You can write on a hit show and make way less money than you would writing on one on television. And there's
Wow.
less of the broadcast TV work to go around, more and more of the streaming work going around. And so a lot less money for writers. That's one thing. Another thing that they're doing is shrinking rooms, making them shorter. Episodes, you have much shorter seasons now,
Yeah,
and
right,
so
right,
that you don't have to hire writers for a certain amount of time. It used to be that you could work on one show or two shows a year and like make a good living. And like, if you don't work for a couple of months after that, you could be okay. Now, if a room is like 2 months, that's not going to be enough to
right.
sustain you for the whole year. And it
Wow.
also, you're not getting a lot of on-set experience anymore. They're refusing to send lower level writers on set. And so it's hurts us with, getting that experience to go to the next level, because you need that to become a producer. Um,
Right.
and so, especially for lower level writers like myself, the jobs are just so few and far between, because none of us have the opportunities to move up in a way that allows us to. We need someone who has on-set experience to be a part of our team, and so
Right. Right.
I wouldn't be in the running for that. And then there's the whole AI thing, which I don't know how familiar you are with like Chat GPT and all of that, but
Right. Right.
AI has the capabilities of doing a lot of creative work now. It's not that great on its own. I think you still have to know how to write to
Right.
get things out of it. But I think the ultimate goal for the studios is to use that work to have even smaller rooms. And so
Right.
really the
Right.
like future of like being this career being sustainable for anyone who doesn't have, money from their parents, which a lot of writers of color. I don't think it's a coincidence that, the last couple of years have seen a lot of like writers from marginalized experiences coming in, and now we're being treated worse.
Right.
That's going
Right.
to eventually push us out because we don't have the money to, live for 2 years between shows, or even longer in some cases. So those are some of the things that we're fighting about, to be recognized that the value we bring to these studios. They're making record profits, they want to make more, and we're just asking for a small part of those profits so that we can live a sustainable life as a writer, and not feel like we're just jumping from gig to gig, and on in danger of losing healthcare when we don't make enough money.
Right. Right. And I mean, I think, like I said, as a consumer, I definitely know when people watch this interview when it's released that they will definitely resonate with that message a lot more, because, as you're saying, it is a bigger game at play to keep us in the dark about essentially the decisions that are being made and how it's affecting the people that are working behind those decisions, right? Like for me, seeing 8 episodes a season, I'm like, oh, I can binge this in a week. And then I'm on to the next 8 episode a season show, not knowing that that is just 100 people that I just had work for a week, and then now they're out of a job because all you had to work on for was 8 episodes. And then other problems like that I definitely know people will become more privy to now that you just educated them on that issue. And then how can we, I guess, as consumers or people watching this who are not writers, how can we support and how can we sort of help out the cause that you guys are fighting?
Yeah, so there's so many ways. Just following the guild, the WGA social media, and amplifying the messaging that we're putting out, amplifying the writers when you come across writers tweeting about the strike, writers posting on TikTok about the strike can be really helpful and effective. I think the biggest tool we have in our arsenal is that the public is in our corner, and we
Right,
need
yeah.
that pressure to just be sustained. If you're in LA, New York, or Atlanta, we're obviously picketing every day during the week. Come out, join. We'll bring some food if you can, but there's usually lots of other people that brings food that you can have, and just stay for an hour or so. The more bodies that we have out there every day, helping us show that we're not going away anytime soon, is going to make this um, process hopefully go by a lot smoother. And also, I think, yeah, just learning more about what these issues are
Right,
itself. The WGA has a whole website dedicated to this strike that you can follow and read up on all of this. And I think those are the main ways. If you want to contribute monetarily, there's an entertainment fund specifically for support staff. So a lot of the folks who are not even writers, but who might be, assistants or other folks who work is affected by this strike. We want to make sure that they can still live and have support, even though they're not getting paid by these studios too. So you can donate
right.
to the entertainment fund as well.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. Um, and to not make a negative situation turn on its head and turn positive. But usually I like to have a little lightning round now that I have my guests a little comfortable with the talks and how they came to be and did all they did. So first, I just want to ask you, what's your favorite tattoo? Because people that are watching this that may not know, Hari likes pain. Like they love pain.
You put it like that, I can't even deny it. I do feel like I have a little bit of a masochism with tattoos. I like the feeling of
No,
until
I have a few tattoos too. Yeah, have you fallen asleep during that tattoo before? I've done that.
I've not got to that level.
Like it was, I think it was a small one though, but it was just you know when it's just the needle and it's right that first initial one is like
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite tattoo?
Yeah, my favorite is my back. It's not finished yet.
Bill,
Should I show you?
sessions have you had?
Huh?
How many sessions have you had?
I've had like 6 maybe. Like it's been like 20 hours. Um, so it's been a while. I probably have like 10 more hours left.
Can I see it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh my
Sorry,
god.
yeah, I'm in my room because the dogs were making a lot of noise. I promise I was not just in bed. But
Let's see. Ow! Ah man. Are you going to the same artist every time?
yes,
Nice.
and it is a Hindu myth. I grew up Hindu. My mother's Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
It's a myth that pretty much represents God's rage and what he'll do to protect his devotees.
Wow.
But yeah, it's my favorite.
Okay, so as a writer, what are your favorite 3 authors?
Ooh, I would say Toni Morrison for sure. Maybe Baldwin. Um, James Baldwin.
Mhm.
I don't know. Who would I say is my third favorite author? I don't know. I guess it changes. Um, let's throw a contemporary one in there. Um, I'm a huge fan of Kiesi Layman's work.
Okay.
And yeah, that's a contemporary one. Not sure if any of these will always be like 1, 2, 3, my favorite.
Right,
Other than
right.
Tony, she's my top. But those are definitely folks that have influenced my work a lot, and whose work I deeply respect.
Now mine is Zora Neale Hurston,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then okay, I'll do a contemporary one too. I love I love Afrofuturism. So if you ever read the Binti series, that's a good series. And Nnedi
Mm-hmm.
Okofor, that's a good
I
series.
keep hearing that, yeah. And
Oh my god,
do you like
that
N.K.
book.
Jameson as well?
Yeah, yeah.
N.K. Jemisin, yeah, she's great. But I haven't read any of um, Okafor's work. But Binti is on my list. I've heard people keep saying I would love that.
Well, you just gave us one, and then we just gave you one back then. So people watching this, they know you got a pit bull named Kaya.
Kia.
Kia, what was something that changed in your life since becoming a dog parent?
Ooh,
For
I,
me, it was waking up early. I never woke up early. My dog wakes me up early as hell.
yeah, there's no such thing as just like a hungover morning. Like you gotta wake
Right.
up,
Oh my
you
God.
you gotta take your dog out. You can't stay out all night anymore.
Right.
Thankfully, she's a bigger dog, so her bladder's cool. She could go to the bathroom twice a day, but I still have to be back twice a day at least. So it keeps me at home, keeps me grounded, gives me a way more working, like walking. I
Right,
never
yeah.
that much. I mean, in New York, I was walking a lot just because I lived in New York, but then it added like walking when even when I didn't have to go nowhere.
Right, right, right.
So yeah, and now I have two more dogs. They're also
Deep.
pit bulls that we found, and so all of that times 100. Like,
Right, exactly. No, I used to live in New York City, and then I moved to Vermont, and then I had my dog. I'm starting walking. I'm like, oh my god, there's trees outside. People are watering their yard. I'm like, I'm enjoying this a little bit. Like, I'm walking a little bit more. I can go for a stroll, a nightly stroll sometimes.
Yes, yeah, it's grown on me. Like now, I love it. Like I look forward to walking them and like try not to be on my phone the whole time. Like
Right.
yeah, I feel like we don't get enough walking anymore as a culture, and dogs help with that.
Exactly. That's why you got three of them.
Right.
So, what's a producer writer that you love to work with?
That I would love to work with.
Yeah.
I would love to work with Barry Jenkins. I love his style. I love his artistry. I think it has a lot of alignment with my own. There's a white man named Damon Lindelof who he
Right.
worked on Lost, The Leftovers, Watchmen.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah,
Yes, yes, yes. I would like the name does sound familiar. Yeah, the Watchmen is crazy.
yes, he's really cool, like just the way that he thinks, and also like I know people who've worked with him, and like I know that he tries to create a lot of space um, for other experiences that aren't his own in a way that is rare
Right.
out in this industry. So I would be really interested in like seeing that up close. Yeah, I'll give those two for now.
Okay, okay. And now to unfortunately end off the interview because our banta is nice, but to end off the interview, what are three lessons that you've learned on your journey thus far through your writership, through your directorship, through your authorship, through your personage, essentially who you are as a person? What are three lessons? Sorry to put your whole experience out to three lessons, but that you wouldn't mind sharing to that next person that's just trying to follow their dreams and their passions.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is that you're never going to be happy in somebody else's shoes, in
Yeah.
somebody else's idea of who you should be. And so, like, even if you can accomplish that, and I think it's also impossible to fully be somewhere you're not meant to be. Um, Even if you could accomplish that, you would never be happy. And so, I think we need to focus on the joy that comes with the difficult path. It's very difficult of carving out your own space, your own lane, your own voice, especially as marginalized people. I think that's the biggest thing. To read and write and consume the
Yeah.
art that you want to create or the art that's related to what you want to create. I know a lot, way too many people who are like, I want to write, I want to do this, I want to make TV, and like are not consuming it. And all of the art that we put out in the world is in relationship to the rest of the world. And so you have to know the context that you're putting art in, and you have to know who's done things before so you can build on it. And that's been very helpful for me. And lastly, to always have like a community of people that's going to keep you accountable to your goals, to your ethics. It can be really easy to lose yourself out in this world in general, but especially when you work so close to you know, fame and all of the things that we are
Right.
aspiring
Right.
towards. It can be really easy to lose sight of why you're doing this work and the artistry of it. And so, if you can build a community of people who are always going to lovingly hold you accountable, I think that's really crucial to keeping your sanity and to making sure that you do what you set out to do.
No, and that's beautiful. And thank you so much once again for sitting down with me and taking it with me and really having a dope conversation. I definitely appreciate it. And I definitely know our viewers would appreciate it as well.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it too.
Of course. So you guys could check out Hari on Instagram at HARIZIYAD. Check out their book, Black Boy Out of Time. Check out also The Neighborhood, season 4 only, because that's the one that they worked on, and that's one that we're going to support. And then also check out this interview at the DC Voice at THEDCVOICE, English major, sorry, on Instagram and YouTube. And hey, we're out of here. Thanks.